He broke up with me through a 2:30 a.m. voice message, because apparently even his cowardice works night shift. 3 hours later, he's in Prague with a girl who unknowingly paid $1,710 for his spiritual awakening, while he walks around in the Ray-Bans I bought him and still has the audacity to Venmo request $58 like I'm his gas sponsor. But the funniest part? He thought none of us would ever compare timelines, until every lie he told snapped into place and the entire cast realized he wasn't the romantic lead, he was the financial scam subplot. Kyle broke up with me through a 2:30 a.m. voice message. Not a call, not a conversation, just a shaky, half-whispered recording with the kind of faux emotional tone people use when they want to sound deep without saying anything meaningful. I woke up to it. The timestamp glared at me, 2:30 a.m. 3 hours later, he appeared in tagged photos from Prague, smiling, relaxed, arm draped casually around a girl with light brown hair and a tiny moon tattoo behind her ear. A girl I had only met once at a work event and never thought about again. And he was wearing the limited edition Ray-Ban aviators I bought him using 2 months' worth of savings. I thought the first feeling I'd experience would be heartbreak. Instead, it felt almost comical, like watching a clown wobble on a tightrope, completely unaware he's about to fall off. I'm Marissa, 28, living in Vancouver, Canada, working as a content designer for a small media agency. My newly minted ex, Kyle Brennan, 30, is in tech sales for a distribution company. We'd been together for 2 years, long enough to be browsing apartments in Yaletown and discussing furniture layouts and monthly budgets. We even joked about adopting a cat. I thought everything was moving forward. But apparently, the only thing moving forward was Kyle, straight out of the relationship. 2 weeks before the breakup voice message, I had surprised him with the Ray-Ban Aviator limited edition pair he'd been coveting. He took photos with them, posted about them, tagged me with cheesy captions like, "Thanks to my special person." I thought that meant something. Turns out it did, just not what I expected. The 2:30 a.m. voice message was barely 30 seconds long. Marissa. I don't think we're aligned anymore. I need time to find myself. I hope you understand. No explanation. No follow-up call. Just that. A low-effort monologue delivered like a poorly rehearsed line. When I tried calling him back, it went straight to voicemail. Texts remained unread. And then, on Instagram, I found out he had unfollowed me and switched his account to private. Classic Kyle, a man who thought vanishing was a personality. That morning, my coworker Jenna came rushing into the office kitchen holding her phone like a piece of breaking news. "Kyle's in Prague." "Look," she said, shoving the screen in front of me. There he was, posting Prague landmarks, cafe breakfasts for 2, and pictures of himself looking far too pleased with life. And in every photo was the girl, Mia Dalton, 22, an event support assistant from his company. Light brown wavy hair. A tiny moon tattoo behind her ear. The kind of detail you wouldn't notice until you suddenly had to. I sent the screenshots to my best friend Lena, who immediately burst out laughing. "Girl, he broke up with you with a 2:30 a.m. voice note and was in Prague with another woman before sunrise? He's not just trash, he's compostable." The thing that made it even more ridiculous came later that afternoon, a Venmo request for $58, captioned, "Gas money." "Thanks, winky face." I stared at it for a full minute before I started laughing. This man had blocked me on every platform except the one he used to ask for money. His self-respect was so thin it could have been printed on rice paper. But the real twist came from Mia's own Instagram. She kept her account public, and the stories were a goldmine of unintentional revelations. Same sunglasses. Same itinerary Kyle and I planned months ago. Same poses. Same everything. He didn't just replace me, he recycled me. Then I found it. Under her travel highlight, a Venmo screenshot. $1,710 Kyle Brennan caption, Prague trip fund blue heart timestamp? 23:41, just a few hours before Kyle sent me that breakup voice note. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel betrayed. I felt a cold, sharp clarity I hadn't felt in months. Everything clicked into place. Kyle wasn't a mastermind. He was a man so sloppy with his lies he might as well have written them on neon signs. And this? This was just the opening chapter. Kyle thought he was entering his European self-discovery era. He didn't know that he had just set up the perfect stage for his own collapse. The morning after I discovered the $1,710 transfer in Mia's highlight, I realized I didn't need any further proof that Kyle had orchestrated his entire European self-discovery trip on someone else's dime. And not just anyone, on a 22-year-old who clearly hadn't learned how to spot men who turn affection into currency. The irony was that Kyle thought he was being subtle. He had no idea how obvious every crack in his plan looked from the outside. Meanwhile, my own life continued as usual. I woke up, went to work, edited content, made coffee. Nothing felt unsteady, except my awareness, which had never been sharper. That afternoon, I received Kyle's infamous $58 Venmo request, which I still refused to accept. Not because I cared about the amount, but because I wanted to see what he'd do next. Predictably, he created more opportunities to expose himself. Around 6 p.m., my phone rang. Harper, his former college roommate. She never called unless something was seriously off. Her voice came tight and low. Marissa. Kyle's telling everyone you dumped him. That you blindsided him. I laughed. Of course he'd spin the narrative that way. If Kyle had a superpower, it was turning himself into the victim of a story he caused. When I explained what really happened, the 2:30 a.m. voice message, the Prague trip, Mia, and the $1,710 transfer, Harper fell silent for several seconds. Then she finally said, "Okay, you should know something. He's over $9,200 in debt on his mom's credit card. He's been scrambling for someone to help him stabilize. With that sentence, the entire picture snapped into focus. He wasn't just using me, he was using whoever stood closest to him. The next day I went to work feeling oddly composed, like someone watching a movie they already know the ending to. Everything Kyle posted only confirmed how desperate he was to perform happiness. One photo from the Charles Bridge, another of him sipping cappuccino, captioned, "New Beginnings." And there was Mia in the background, light brown hair glinting in the sun, moon tattoo peeking out behind her ear. Kyle wore the Ray-Ban aviators I bought him like a badge of honor. Yet the way he held his phone, tense and clumsy, showed a man trying to convince himself more than anyone else. That evening, Kyle's mother, Cynthia, called me. She sounded frightened. "Marissa, honey, have you heard from Kyle? He told me he needed to get away because of emotional pressure, and now he's not answering any of my calls. Do you know where he is?" Kyle obviously didn't want her asking about the $9,200 debt anymore, so he fed her some mental clarity journey story. I didn't want to drag Mia into this, so I spoke carefully. All I said was, "I think he's traveling." Cynthia sighed heavily. "He's using someone else's money again, isn't he? He always does this." I didn't have to say a word. After we hung up, I decided to act, but not aggressively. Calculated calm, exactly the way Kyle hated. I emailed the HR department at his company, politely asking whether there was any corporate travel program to Prague because Kyle mentioned it for tax purposes. Their response came quickly: there is no company-sponsored travel to Prague. One line. One stone added quietly to the damn. Later that night, I received another message from Mia's roommate. "Things are weird. Kyle asked Mia for $1,000 more to fix a hotel issue. She's starting to question everything." I replied simply, he owes $9,200. He's not fixing anything, he's covering holes. She reacted with a single shocked emoji. By the time Vancouver drifted into evening and Prague moved toward noon, Qley began panicking. He sent me an email titled "We Should Talk." It was full of rambling cliches. I've grown so much from this trip, and maybe we could still support each other with remaining financial matters. I nearly choked on my tea reading that. Qley had always used poetic phrasing when he wanted something. But nothing beat the ending line, "I hope you're not upset about the situation with Mia." We had drifted apart long before the voice message. Ah yes, his attempt to rewrite history. I didn't respond. An hour later, he emailed again, "Have you seen the $58 request? I need it processed." I didn't reply to that either. By then, the cracks were finally widening. Mia's roommate wrote again, "Mia's crying." Qley asked for more money. She questioned him. He got defensive. I told her everything. She looked like she'd wake up from a spell. That evening, Mia messaged me directly. Polite. Careful. Hesitant. "Hi, you're Marissa, right? I'm sorry to contact you. I just need clarity. Qley said you two broke up long ago, and that you're trying to sabotage his healing trip. I don't want drama. I just want to know the truth." I exhaled slowly. This required precision. One wrong sentence and I'd sound like a bitter ex. So I stuck to facts. I'm not here to badmouth Qley. Here's the exact timeline: 2:30 a.m., Qley sends me a breakup voice message. 7:02 a.m., he posts "From Prague with you." 23:41 the night before, you transferred him $1,710. Afternoon next day, he sends me a $58 Venmo request. You can decide what that means. I attached screenshots. Nothing more, nothing less. Mia saw the message but didn't reply. She didn't need to. Because 30 minutes later, Qley's fury erupted into my inbox. "What did you say to Mia? You're interfering. You're ruining my life." Then, like clockwork, "I love you." I'm just confused. All within 12 minutes. I set the phone down and stirred my pasta. But the final email of the night wasn't from Mia. It was Qley again, panicked. "My mom called me. Why is she asking about my debt? You talked to her, didn't you? You had no right." I laughed. Cynthia had figured it out all on her own. By then, the pressure was no longer mine. It was his. Qley had built a house of cards out of half-truths and charm. Now the wind was finally blowing. The morning after Mia's roommate told me what happened, I woke with a kind of stillness, sharp, clean, and strangely calm. Her trembling voice replayed in my head, not because I felt responsible for saving anyone, but because I refused to watch another woman get caught in the same web I had just escaped. If Qley thrived on chaos, then I would unravel him with clarity. It started simply. I drafted a polite email to Qley's HR department, asking whether the company had any international travel reimbursement program since Qley mentioned it for tax purposes. I kept the tone warm and neutral. Their reply came in under 2 hours: "No such program exists, and no employees are traveling to Prague on company business." One sentence. Clean, factual, and probably devastating once they reviewed Qley's Instagram parade of selfies. I didn't send anything further. I didn't need to. It was enough to let the truth sit where it belonged. That afternoon, Mia's roommate texted again. He asked her for $1,000 more. She looked shocked. She said she thought the hotel already charged her. I could practically picture Kyle fumbling through excuses. I responded, he owes $9,200. He's not solving problems, he's plugging holes. Her reply was just a horrified emoji. Meanwhile, Kyle's Prague posts became more theatrical, as if trying to drown out the rising static. But beneath the smiles, he looked strained, gripping his phone too tightly, jaw clenched behind the Ray-Ban aviators I bought him. The captions grew more dramatic, finding myself in Europe. Real love finds you when you least expect it. And in the background of every shot, there was Mia, light brown hair curling softly in the wind, moon tattoo visible when the angle caught her profile. It should have angered me. Instead, it felt like watching a predictable plot play out in slow motion. By evening, Cynthia called again. Her voice rose and fell like she was trying not to cry. Kyle came home for a day before flying back out. He didn't tell me anything. I saw the debt statement. It's worse than I thought. She sighed heavily. Mia called me. She was sobbing. What did he do now? I didn't give details, just said Mia had begun to see things clearly. Cynthia whispered, good. Someone needs to. After we hung up, I sat quietly with my tea, no anger left, just a recognition of patterns that had gone unchecked for too long. Around noon Prague time, the pressure finally broke through Kyle's curated bubble. My inbox lit up with an email from him, we need to talk. The message rambled about personal growth, clarity, and elevating communication, whatever that meant. He wrote, this trip made me realize how far apart we've grown. I'm sorry if the timing of my voice message upset you. I just needed space. For someone who had abandoned me at 2:30 a.m., he suddenly had a lot to say. And at the bottom, I hope you can still help me navigate the remaining financial matters between us. I snorted. Kyle used fancy language the way some people used expensive cologne to cover something sour. I ignored him, and within an hour came a shorter, needier email. Please approve the $58 Venmo. I need it taken care of. The entitlement was almost athletic. I still didn't respond. That silence must have pushed him over the edge, because 20 minutes later, I received a frantic message from Mia's roommate. She confronted him. He panicked. He tried to spin it. She didn't buy it. I could imagine Kyle spiraling, trapped by the same timeline he himself created. That evening, Mia texted me again, this time with more certainty. I confronted him. He denied everything at first, then blamed stress, then said you misunderstood. I showed him the screenshots you sent. He changed stories 3 times. I told her, you didn't do anything wrong. People like him rely on confusion. She didn't reply, but she didn't need to. The shift had already happened. 30 minutes later, Kyle detonated into my inbox. What did you say to Mia? You're jealous and trying to sabotage my healing journey. You're ruining everything. And then, predictably, Marissa. I love you. Can we talk? His emotional whiplash could have given someone a concussion. I placed my phone face down and continued cooking dinner. But his final email that night was the one that told me the walls were truly closing in. My mom is asking questions about my finances. She said you told her. You had no right. I laughed out loud. He had no idea that I hadn't said a single word about his debt. Cynthia had simply seen the signs he tried so poorly to hide. Kyle had always counted on people not comparing notes. But now Mia, her roommate, his mother, and I all had the same puzzle pieces. The truth didn't even need to be nudged anymore, it was standing fully upright, visible from every angle. And for the first time, Kyle realized that the story he'd been spinning was no longer in his control. Prague wasn't his fresh start. It was the beginning of the unraveling. Kyle returned from Prague on the exact day everything reached its natural tipping point, not with fireworks, not with a dramatic confrontation, but with quiet inevitability. The kind of ending that doesn't need an audience to be satisfying. I didn't have to sabotage him. I didn't have to orchestrate anything. All I did was let the truth sit exactly where it belonged, and the rest collapsed on its own. A couple of days before he came home, Mia finally wrote back. Her message was short, "Thank you. I need to talk to him." It wasn't angry. It wasn't bitter. It was decisive, the kind of clarity that's impossible to unsee once it arrives. I knew Kyle would feel the ground shift the moment Mia stopped swallowing his contradictions. Men like him don't fear consequences. They fear losing control of the narrative. A voice message from Cynthia came next. I'd never received one from her before, and hearing her voice trembling slightly made me pause. Marissa, thank you for not hiding the truth. Kyle just returned to Toronto. I don't know what he's been doing, but I saw his credit statement, and the debt is even worse. And Mia, poor girl, she called me. She sounded heartbroken. I didn't say much besides wishing her well. It wasn't triumph I felt, it was relief that the right people were finally speaking to each other instead of being isolated by Kyle's theatrics. When Kyle called me 5 times in a row the next evening, I already knew why. I let it ring until the 5th call before answering, not out of cruelty, but because I wanted to hear what someone sounds like when the last lie stops holding. His voice was nothing like the confident man in Prague selfies. It was fractured. Marissa, please. I need to talk. Mia left me at the airport. My mom knows about the debt. I don't know what you told them, I cut in, calm as ever. I didn't tell them anything untrue. That silence on the line, sharp, desperate, said everything. He whispered, "You ruined everything." I corrected him gently, "No, Kyle. You did." The next day, Mia sent a follow-up text. "No apologies. No drama, I flew home. I'm safe. Thank you for giving me the timeline." Without it, I think I would have kept believing him. A minute later, she added, "He left the Ray-Ban aviators in my suitcase. Do you want them back?" I laughed into my coffee. The image was perfect, Kyle stumbling through airports, losing the one thing he used as a prop for his curated New Beginnings aesthetic. I replied, "Keep them. You need them more than I do." She sent back a small heart. By the end of the week, the storm had quieted. No more frantic emails. No more demands for $58. No more emotional ricochets. Kyle disappeared into the mess he created, suddenly silent once he had no one left to lean on financially or emotionally. I knew he'd have to face the $9,200 debt, the suspicious HR inquiries about his so-called business trip, and the fallout of Mia and Cynthia finally comparing notes. But none of that belonged to me anymore. One final email did arrive from him. No metaphors. No guilt trips. No long explanations. Just a single sentence, "I'm sorry." For once, it felt real. Or at least as real as Kyle was capable of being. I didn't respond. Not out of bitterness, but because there was nothing left to resolve. Sometimes closure isn't a conversation, it's the absence of one. Sometimes the cleanest ending is simply choosing not to open the same door twice. That night, I sat on my balcony overlooking the lights reflecting on the water. Mia messaged me saying she got a new job and moved closer to family. Cynthia told me she was getting her finances sorted and stepping back from enabling Kyle. And me? I realized I had reclaimed something far more valuable than the Ray-Bans, or the time Kyle wasted, or the explanations I never got. I had reclaimed clarity, the quiet kind that settles in your bones and doesn't need vindication to feel complete. Prague didn't give Kyle the reinvention he wanted. But it gave me closure in the simplest, most elegant form, watching the dust settle around a man who finally had to stand alone in the consequences he created. It wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It was just peaceful, and deeply, perfectly enough.